by scratching the surface, you get a terrible shock. It's such it's a heinous crime. People are so shocked by what...
The room had been prepared for a routine royal briefing. Instead, Queen Camilla placed a sealed cream envelope on the table and revealed a decision that had remained hidden since Princess Diana's death. Catherine, Princess of Wales, had been named the future guardian of Diana's most personal inheritance, a priceless sapphire-and-pearl collection, private handwritten letters, and the ceremonial Spencer Rose Tiara. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Prince William looked directly at Camilla and asked the question everyone feared. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Camilla kept one hand beside the envelope as silence tightened around Clarence's house. The London residence had been closed to everyone except William, Catherine, King Charles, 2 estate solicitors, and a royal archivist. They expected a discussion about jewelry loans and Diana's papers. Instead, the Queen opened an inheritance memorandum, a formal record directing how property must be transferred, and read the decision aloud. Diana's estate had granted Catherine future custodianship of the Spencer Rose Tiara, the sapphire-and-pearl collection, and 17 handwritten letters meant for the woman who became Princess of Wales. Custodianship meant guarding the items, deciding when they could be worn, and protecting the wishes attached to them. Catherine did not reach forward. She locked her fingers together and asked William whether he had known. The prince answered quietly, "No." William leaned toward Camilla, and his restraint unsettled Charles. He demanded to know why she possessed the memorandum, and why it had remained sealed for years. The king recognized the old pain beneath the question. Camilla revealed that the inheritance could not be activated until William had married. Catherine had become Princess of Wales, and their marriage had endured a defined period of royal service. The queen then explained why the tiara mattered. It was not merely an expensive jewel. Diana had described it as the symbol of the future queen, who would protect William's family and carry her legacy without turning it into spectacle. Camilla slid the envelope across the table. Catherine touched one corner, then pulled her hand back. Charles set down his pen without signing the release form. William opened the memorandum himself. His eyes stopped at a reference to an attached personal statement from Diana. The page was missing. Camilla met his stare and admitted she knew where it had been kept. What it contained, she warned, could change the way Catherine understood the gift forever. The inheritance had finally been named, but before Catherine could understand why Diana had chosen her, she first had to confront the complicated lives of everyone sitting around that table. The inheritance did not fall into an empty room. It landed between 4 people bound together by love, betrayal, grief, and a woman whose absence still shaped every royal decision. Catherine saw a responsibility she had never requested. William saw the return of his mother's voice. Charles saw a past he had spent decades trying to contain. And Camilla saw something more dangerous, a legacy powerful enough to redefine who truly carried emotional authority inside the monarchy. Catherine had spent years walking beside Diana's memory without trying to take her place. Every gesture, dress, and act of warmth had been measured against a woman she never met. Now the collection threatened to make that comparison official. As Princess of Wales, a title given to the wife of the heir, she would not simply inherit jewels. She would inherit expectations, judgment, and the burden of being watched for echoes of someone else. William felt the danger differently. His mother's possessions were not royal assets to him. They were fragments of a childhood cut short. Letters in her hand, stones she wore, private choices that still carried her voice. He feared the palace would turn those memories into symbols before he understood what Diana intended. Charles remained seated after the others rose. He ran his thumb across the folded memorandum, the formal document recording the inheritance instructions, and admitted to William that Diana had always understood the power of symbols better than anyone around her. The king then confessed that he had known future directions existed, but he had never seen the final sealed version. His words did not calm the prince. They sharpened the question of who had kept it from him. Camilla retreated to her sitting room and removed a brooch with unsteady fingers. The queen studied her reflection and understood what the revelation could mean. To the public, Catherine's gain might look like her surrender. To the family, Diana's return through these objects could weaken a position she had spent decades building. Catherine caught William in the corridor and asked why the document had appeared now. He suspected an internal dispute over ownership had forced the issue, but he could offer no proof. Later, she closed their apartment door, placed the unopened copy on a table, and stepped away when he reached for her hand. "Will this make me her guardian?" Catherine asked. "Or her prisoner?" Before William could answer, a handwritten note arrived from Camilla, requesting a meeting next morning. One sentence waited. "There is something the official document does not explain." To understand what the Queen was preparing to reveal, Catherine would have to return to the confrontation that forced the secret into the open. The announcement had not begun with solicitors, sealed papers, or a formal royal meeting. It had begun 3 months earlier, during a private remembrance dinner at Kensington Palace. A small velvet case had been opened after dessert, revealing one of Diana's sapphire bracelets. Camilla reached toward it. Catherine closed the case first. The soft click of that lid became the sound everyone remembered, because it marked the moment an old rivalry turned into an unavoidable battle over inheritance. Tension had been building long before that dinner. Several objects linked to Diana remained divided between family custody, royal archival storage, and temporary ceremonial use. Royal archival storage meant protected palace rooms, where historic possessions were recorded and preserved. Because no single person controlled the entire collection, every request to borrow, display, or transfer an item risked reopening old wounds between households. Camilla believed she had found the answer. During a documented planning meeting weeks earlier, the Queen proposed a crown custodianship program, a central system that would place the collection under one authority. She argued that unified control would protect the pieces, stop private disputes, and prevent Diana's belongings from being scattered across competing branches of the family. Catherine heard something colder. At the remembrance dinner, she said the possessions should remain tied to Diana's sons and grandchildren, not absorbed into the institution that had once failed to protect her. William supported his wife immediately. Charles lowered his eyes. Camilla stiffened and asked whether the princess was questioning her ability to safeguard royal history. The room changed in one heartbeat. Camilla reached for the sapphire bracelet to explain how it could be catalogued. Catherine closed the velvet case and kept her hand on the lid. "This is not simply royal property," she said. "It is part of William's mother." Charles understood the damage at once. The king ordered a legal review of every unresolved estate record, hoping paperwork could settle what emotion had made explosive. Instead, a senior archivist found an old registration entry naming a future Princess of Wales custodianship instrument, meaning a document created to grant control of specific property to William's future wife. The discovery led investigators to a fireproof cabinet, transferred from the late Queen's private office. Inside rested the sealed envelope addressed to Camilla, with written instructions that only the Queen consort could present it after every condition had been fulfilled. Yet the cabinet held one final shock. Diana's personal statement was gone. A handwritten inventory confirmed that the late monarch had removed it after reading it alone. The bracelet had triggered the investigation, but the missing statement made the dispute deeply personal, and Catherine was about to demand the truth directly from Camilla. When Catherine entered the private morning room, there were no equerries, secretaries, or lawyers waiting to soften the conversation. Camilla stood beside the window with Diana's memorandum resting on a small table between two untouched cups of tea. Neither woman offered a formal greeting. Catherine closed the door herself. Then she asked why the Queen had waited until a legal confrontation forced her to reveal a gift that had been intended for Diana's future daughter-in-law. Camilla did not answer at once. The Queen gripped the back of a chair and explained that the late monarch had chosen her because the release required cooperation between Diana's family inheritance and the Crown's ceremonial system. That system governed how royal objects could be worn, displayed, or passed between generations. Without agreement from both sides, the collection could have remained trapped in legal silence. That risk mattered, because delay could turn a family trust into a permanent struggle for royal control. Catherine listened, but her expression hardened. The inheritance gave her possession and guardianship, yet it also required her to preserve the pieces for Princess Charlotte and any future heir she believed capable of carrying Diana's values. Guardianship meant more than ownership. It meant protecting the collection from sale, misuse, and political revenge. Catherine asked the question directly. Had Camilla revealed the memorandum from duty, or because the legal review would have exposed it anyway? The Queen's fingers tightened around the chair. Then, in a private recorded conversation later preserved by the Royal Archive, she admitted the truth. She had delayed requesting the release because she feared the gift would look like Diana choosing Catherine over her. Camilla's voice dropped. Every crown she wore, she said, was measured against a memory she could never defeat. Catherine pulled out the chair but refused to sit. She told the queen that preserving Diana's legacy was not an attack. Camilla answered that inside the monarchy, symbols became weapons even when their holders meant no harm. The queen then disclosed the missing statement's location. It remained sealed inside a locked archival box at Windsor, placed there after the late monarch read it alone. An inventory carried one handwritten line from Diana. The woman who receives these pieces must never use them to wound the woman who stands before her. Catherine finally made her decision. She would accept nothing until the statement was opened before William, Charles, and Camilla together. She would not carry Diana's legacy while part of Diana's message remained concealed. Catherine had forced the confrontation into the open, but the final decision now rested with the one person who controlled the archive, the crown, and the release of the missing words. The inheritance belonged to Diana's estate, but the missing statement was trapped behind royal authority. Only King Charles could authorize the Windsor archive to open the late Queen's sealed box. For the first time, the choice was entirely his. He could release Diana's final explanation and risk reopening the most painful chapter of his life, or keep the letter hidden and confirm every suspicion now growing inside his own family. Charles understood why the decision carried such weight. The statement had been placed under sovereign archival restriction, a rule that allowed the monarch to seal private records involving crown property, future titles, and historic jewels used during state ceremonies. Opening it could settle the inheritance dispute. It could also expose old wounds before the family was ready. Pressure closed in from both sides. William's office demanded immediate release, arguing that Diana's wishes belonged to her sons before they belonged to the palace. Camilla's advisors warned that disclosure could weaken the queen's position and renew brutal comparisons with the woman whose memory still overshadowed her. Charles sat alone in his study and opened Diana's original estate inventory. Her handwriting appeared in the margin beside one item, and the king stopped reading. The familiar slant of those words carried him back to a life history had judged in public, but never fully resolved in private. William entered without aids. The prince told his father that the monarchy could not preach duty while hiding his mother's final wishes. Charles answered that truth could heal, but it could also destroy people who had spent years rebuilding themselves. William did not retreat. He asked whether protection had become another name for fear. A senior archivist then presented Queen Elizabeth's written instruction. The late monarch had ordered the box opened, when the future of the monarchy requires compassion more than protection. The note was a documented directive preserved in the archive, and its meaning struck Charles with painful clarity. His mother had never intended permanent silence. She had left him to judge when the family was strong enough to hear Diana without collapsing. Charles placed the release order on his desk. His pen hovered. Then the monarch signed, pressed the bell for his private secretary, and said, "Bring the box before sunset." The archival case arrived before dusk. Its inventory listed Diana's statement, an audio cassette, and a smaller sealed packet addressed directly to Catherine by title, though Diana had died years before she entered William's life. Charles had opened the archive, but what waited inside was about to make the inheritance real, and force them all to face a future Diana had somehow imagined with terrifying and deeply personal precision. At sunset, the Windsor box was opened in a room where nobody dared speak above a whisper. The letter rested on top, but beneath it lay an old recording marked for William and the future Princess of Wales. When the cassette began to play, Diana's voice filled the silence. Catherine lowered her head. William stopped breathing for a moment. Charles closed his eyes. Camilla remained perfectly still, as the woman who had shaped all their lives spoke again. Diana spoke through a recorded message, created to explain why she had separated these possessions from estate property. She wanted the jewels, letters, and objects protected from becoming trophies, bargaining tools, or symbols controlled only by palace politics. Estate property meant belongings passed on under legal instructions, and she made clear emotional meaning mattered more than market value. William gripped the edge of the table when his mother spoke about watching her sons become men. He had guarded his grief for years, but this time did not hide it. Catherine placed her hand over his, and he held it as Diana described the woman William chooses, if she protects his heart without erasing his independence. The future Princess of Wales meant the woman who would marry the heir and stand beside him as queen. Camilla listened for judgment. Instead, Diana asked the recipient never to use the inheritance to humiliate anyone connected with the past. The Queen's expression shifted, because mercy had arrived where she expected condemnation. Charles opened his eyes and looked toward her, understanding that the message had protected both memory and the living. The final document carried the greatest surprise. It granted Catherine authority over the Diana Legacy Collection, a protected group of personal items preserved under one guardian. She could decide what was worn, displayed, loaned, or passed to Princess Charlotte. The prize was not one tiara. It was control over how Diana's story would enter the future. Catherine opened the smaller packet. Diana's letter warned that public affection could become a prison. She urged the unknown woman to protect her marriage, remain present for her children, and never mistake applause for love. Catherine wiped away one tear and said she would accept, but she would not wear the tiara until William believed the act honored his mother rather than exploited her. The decision had barely settled when palace officials confirmed the meeting had leaked. Photographers were gathering outside royal residences, and rival advisors were shaping the story before Catherine had spoken publicly. Diana's voice had softened the family's private conflict, but beyond Windsor's walls, the inheritance was becoming a public contest over memory, legitimacy, and the future face of the crown. That night, William and Catherine sat alone at Adelaide Cottage, with Diana's letter between them. There were no lawyers, no courtiers, and no royal titles in the room, only a husband, a wife, and the words of a mother who had never met her daughter-in-law. William asked Catherine whether she truly wanted the inheritance. She answered that wanting it was irrelevant. What mattered was whether accepting it could protect their family without turning Diana into a palace weapon. Catherine understood the choice could not remain private forever. Acceptance would make her the legal and ceremonial guardian of the collection, meaning she would control how its objects were protected, worn, displayed, and passed forward. Refusal would return authority to a joint estate committee shaped by several royal households. That mattered because divided control could turn Diana's memory into a permanent source of bargaining and conflict. William feared a different cost. Every bracelet, letter, or public appearance could invite fresh comparisons between Catherine and his mother. He worried that one tiara might erase years of careful distance, forcing his wife into a role she had never claimed. Catherine admitted that fear had followed her for years. She had tried to honor Diana without copying her, yet accepting the collection could make admiration look like replacement. William reached across the table and told her she was free to refuse. His mother's memory, he said, should never become another duty imposed upon her. He would stand beside Catherine even if she locked every item away and never allowed the palace to use them again. Catherine read the final paragraph once more. One line had been overlooked. The collection should pass only to a woman strong enough to refuse wearing it, when public spectacle demanded it. The words changed everything. The prize was not the tiara. It was the authority to decide when Diana's legacy should be seen and when it needed protection from exploitation. Catherine folded the letter, returned it to the envelope, and told William she would accept. He kissed her forehead and said his mother had not chosen a replacement. She had created a safeguard. The next step carried its own danger. Catherine agreed to acknowledge the collection at a children's welfare reception. She would not wear the tiara. Instead, she would select one smaller piece, whose meaning could not be mistaken. For William, that restraint proved Catherine understood the burden. For her, his trust mattered more than any jewel, because it allowed them to face the coming storm as equals together. Their private decision brought peace to the marriage. But the moment Catherine stepped into public view, the world would decide what Diana's final gift represented. By morning, the inheritance was no longer a palace secret. Outside Kensington Palace, a crowd gathered beneath umbrellas as newspapers appeared with the same extraordinary image. Catherine holding Diana's sealed letter, while William stood beside her. One front page carried 3 words across its entire width: Diana's final gift. Broadcasters interrupted regular programming, historians argued over the symbolism, and thousands waited to see whether Catherine would appear wearing the prize that had already transformed her position. Buckingham Palace moved quickly. Its official statement confirmed that Catherine had accepted custodianship of a private legacy collection connected to Diana. Custodianship meant legal responsibility for protecting the items and deciding how they could be used. The statement stressed that the transfer came from estate instructions, not a royal decree, because the gift belonged to Diana's private wishes, rather than a new command from Charles. Commentators divided almost at once. Some called it a natural bridge between two princesses of Wales, the title traditionally given to the wife of the male heir. Others warned that Catherine now held enormous emotional power over how Diana would be remembered. William heard both arguments, and knew every future choice could be treated as loyalty, ambition, or betrayal. Camilla faced the headlines alone. The Queen opened a newspaper that placed Catherine beside Diana, while reducing her own role to a small photograph in the corner. She folded the paper slowly instead of tearing it. The restraint revealed pain deeper than anger. Charles answered that pressure during a private briefing with senior advisors. The king told them the monarchy could not demand reconciliation while fearing the truth. He ordered that no official wording weaken Diana's intentions or question Catherine's authority. Outside Kensington Palace, one moment captured the public mood. A young mother placed white roses at the gates while holding her daughter's hand. Nearby, people applauded when a large screen showed Catherine arriving at the children's charity reception. Cameras searched for the Spencer Rose Tiara, but it never appeared. Catherine wore only Diana's small sapphire-and-pearl brooch above her heart. In a recorded speech, she said the collection would serve children and future generations, not become a display of personal victory. William watched with quiet relief. Camilla watched with guarded surprise. Charles understood that restraint had protected all of them. The praise was immediate, but the final judgment still waited inside the family. Catherine returned to Windsor, where Camilla was ready to speak once more. No one could avoid what followed. The public had embraced Catherine's restraint, yet the inheritance could not become a true legacy until the two women at its center decided whether it would divide them forever or finally end their silent war. The final meeting contained no solicitors and required no sealed documents. Catherine entered Windsor carrying Diana's letter, while Camilla waited beside the open archival box. For years, the two women had occupied opposite sides of a story neither had created. Now one held Diana's inheritance, and the other had surrendered the secret that protected it. Catherine placed the letter between them, and made a decision that transformed the prize from a symbol of victory into an act of responsibility. Catherine spoke first. The jewelry and letters would become the Diana Legacy Collection, a protected group of personal objects preserved under one guardian. She would control when the pieces appeared, but their purpose would reach beyond ceremony. They would support children, homelessness, mental health, and family welfare, causes that reflected compassion rather than status. Charlotte would inherit a choice, not a command. The Spencer Rose Tiara would remain unworn until she reached adulthood, and Catherine would let her daughter decide whether it belonged in public ceremony or private family memory. That mattered because legacy without freedom could become another burden passed from one generation to the next. Catherine turned to Camilla and made her position clear. Accepting Diana's trust did not require defeating anyone. She would not use the collection to rewrite the past, humiliate the Queen, or divide Charles from his wife. Camilla answered through the private conversation preserved in the family archive. She admitted that fear had delayed the release. Diana's memory, she believed, might strip away the legitimacy she had spent decades building. Catherine did not soften the truth. Legitimacy could not be protected by hiding another woman's final wishes. Camilla lowered her eyes, removed the archival key from her chain, and placed it in Catherine's palm. The princess closed her fingers around it, then offered her other hand. After one long pause, the Queen accepted it. Charles learned that Catherine had honored Diana without using her memory as revenge. William understood something even deeper. His wife had not simply inherited his mother's possessions, she had stopped them from becoming weapons. The true prize was never the gemstones. It was Diana's trust, passed to Catherine so she could protect William, guide Charlotte, and keep compassion alive inside royal power. There was no final secret left to change the decision. Catherine was not Diana's replacement. She had become the guardian of what Diana wanted the monarchy to become. Camilla's confession closed the rivalry. Charles accepted the past, and William saw his mother's wishes fulfilled without losing his present. At last, together. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.